The unexpected captivity. The metallic taste of blood filled Commander Arya Blackstone's mouth as consciousness returned like a cruel joke. Her last memory was the brilliant flash of plasma fire tearing through the hull of the UES Defiant, followed by the sickening sensation of explosive decompression. Now she found herself lying on something unexpectedly soft, breathing air that carried an oddly sweet scent, like honey mixed with ozone. Her eyes snapped open to reveal a ceiling that seemed to shimmer with colors that shouldn't exist, hues that made her brain struggle to process what she was seeing. The room was neither a cell nor a medical bay, but something in between, with walls that appeared to breathe slowly, pulsing with bioluminescent veins of light. She tried to sit up, expecting restraints, but found none. Her uniform was gone, replaced by a garment that felt like silk but looked like captured starlight. A sound like wind chimes mixed with whale song announced the arrival of her captors. The doorway, which she hadn't noticed before, simply melted open like ice in reverse, and 3 beings entered. The Zalathi were nothing like the intelligence reports had suggested. Standing nearly 8 feet tall, they moved with a fluid grace that defied their crystalline appearance. Their bodies seemed to be made of living glass, with internal lights that pulsed in patterns she instinctively knew were emotional indicators. The lead Zalathi approached, its face a smooth surface broken only by what might have been sensory organs. When it spoke, the words came not through sound but directly into her mind, a sensation that should have been invasive but felt strangely gentle. "You are awake, human commander. This is unexpected. Your species typically remains unconscious for several rotations after exposure to our capture protocols." Arya forced herself to stand, pleased when her legs held steady despite the slight tremor in her muscles. Years of military training kicked in, and she straightened her spine, meeting what she assumed were the alien's eyes. "Commander Arya Blackstone, United Earth Forces, serial number 447298854. Under the Geneva Convention and the Galactic Accord of 2387, I am entitled to—" The Zalathi's body flickered with what she would later learn was amusement. "Your conventions do not apply here, Commander. However, you misunderstand your situation. You are not what your species would call a prisoner of war. You are a guest under observation." The word choice made Arya's tactical mind spin into overdrive. Guest implied temporary. Observation implied study. Neither suggested the torture or execution she had been trained to expect from the Zalathi, who had been portrayed as ruthless conquerors in every military briefing she'd attended. Over the following days, Arya discovered that her accommodation defied every expectation of captivity. The room adjusted its temperature to her comfort without being asked. Food appeared 3 times daily, and while alien in appearance, it was nutritious and surprisingly palatable. Books materialized on a shelf that hadn't existed the day before. Texts in English about subjects ranging from Earth history to Zalathi poetry. The strangest part was the bed. It was nothing like the hard military bunk she'd known for 15 years. This surface adapted to her body, supporting her in ways that made her chronic back pain, a souvenir from a training accident years ago, simply vanish. She found herself sleeping deeper than she had in years, dreams vivid but not unpleasant. Her primary guard, who she learned was named Velthara, visited daily. Unlike the interrogations she expected, their conversations were almost philosophical. Velthara seemed genuinely curious about humanity, not in a clinical way, but with what she could only describe as empathetic interest. "Your species fascinates us," Velthara admitted during one session. Its crystalline form shifting to what Arya had learned indicated contemplation. "You are fragile, yet you throw yourselves into battle. You live such brief lives, yet you make plans spanning centuries. You feel pain acutely, yet you endure it willingly for others. These are contradictions we cannot reconcile." Arya found herself laughing, a sound that caused Velthara's form to pulse with surprise. "That's humanity in a nutshell. We're walking contradictions. We're capable of great cruelty and incredible kindness, sometimes in the same breath. We're weak individually but strong together. We're mortal, but we dream of immortality. And this does not disturb you? This internal conflict? Disturb us? It defines us. It's what makes us human. The struggle between what we are and what we aspire to be is the engine of our entire civilization." As days turned into weeks, Arya noticed changes in how the Zalathi treated her. Other humans were brought to the facility. Crew members from various ships she learned had been destroyed in what the media back home was calling the Battle of Kepler Station. But there were no mass cells, no deprivation, no enhanced interrogations. Each human was kept in similar comfortable quarters, allowed to interact during designated periods. During one such gathering, Arya met Lieutenant Marcus Chen, an engineer from the UES Prometheus. His story matched hers: unexpected comfort, philosophical conversations, and a growing sense that something larger was at play. "They're studying us," Marcus said, keeping his voice low even though they both knew the Zalathi could monitor them anywhere, but not like lab rats. More like they're trying to understand something specific about us. Arya nodded, having reached the same conclusion. The question is what? And why the comfortable treatment? If they wanted to break us, there are easier ways. Maybe, Marcus said slowly, breaking us isn't the point. What if they're trying to understand why we don't break? The revelation came 3 weeks into her captivity. Velthara arrived at her quarters with 2 other Zalathi she hadn't seen before. Their forms flickered with colors she had learned indicated extreme emotion, fear, hope, and something she couldn't quite identify. "Commander Blackstone," Velthara began, and for the first time she heard uncertainty in the mental voice. "We must speak truthfully with you. Our species faces extinction." The words hung in the air like a physical presence. Arya kept her expression neutral, but her mind raced. This was not the confession of a conquering force. "A plague," Velthara continued. "One that affects not our bodies, but our consciousness. We call it the silence. Our people lose the will to continue to strive to exist. They simply unstop. No medicine can cure it, no technology can prevent it. Entire worlds have gone quiet. And you think humans can help?" Arya asked, pieces of a larger puzzle beginning to form in her mind. "We observed your species during the conflicts. Your ships destroyed, your colonies burned, your people killed in numbers that would break any Zalathi mind. Yet you continued. You rebuilt. You persisted. Even now, knowing you are in our power, you do not despair. You adapt. You find meaning even here." Arya stood, pacing to the window that looked out onto an alien landscape of crystal spires and bioluminescent forests. "So this isn't a prison camp. It's a research facility. You're trying to understand human resilience." "More than understand," Velthara admitted. "We hope to learn it. To save our species, we must discover what makes yours unbreakable." The irony wasn't lost on Arya. Humanity, the species the Zalathi had been fighting, might be the key to their survival. She turned to face the 3 aliens, seeing them not as captors but as desperate beings facing oblivion. "You could have just asked," she said simply. The Zalathi's forms pulsed with what she now recognized as surprise. "You would help your enemies?" "You're not our enemies," Arya replied. "You're just another species trying to survive in a hostile universe. That's something humans understand better than most." The truth unveiled. The revelation changed everything. Within hours of Arya's conversation with Velthara, the entire dynamic of the facility shifted. The subtle barriers between human and Zalathi areas dissolved, and what had been a prison transformed into something unprecedented. A collaborative research center focused on understanding the human survival instinct. Dr. Sarah Martinez, a neuroscientist who had been captured from the UES Darwin, quickly became the bridge between species. Her excitement was palpable as she worked alongside Zalathi scientists, sharing theories about human consciousness that seemed to both baffle and inspire her crystalline colleagues. "It's fascinating," Sarah explained to Arya during one of their joint sessions. "The Zalathi consciousness is collective at its base level. They share a fundamental connection that makes them stronger as a group, but vulnerable to collective despair. Humans are the opposite. We're individually isolated in our own minds, which makes us resilient to collective trauma, but requires us to actively build connections. The Zalathi had technology that could map consciousness in ways humanity had only dreamed of. When they scanned human brains during various scenarios, stress tests, problem-solving, creative exercises, the results astounded them. Where Zalathi minds showed linear patterns, human consciousness was chaos barely contained. Millions of competing thoughts and emotions that somehow produced coherent action. Velthara spent hours with Arya, trying to understand human concepts that seemed simple to her, but revolutionary to the Zalathi. Hope in particular fascinated them. "You hope even when logic dictates failure," Velthara observed, its form shimmering with confusion. Your own history is filled with instances where hope led to destruction, yet you continue to embrace it. Arya smiled, remembering her grandmother's words from years ago. Hope isn't logical, it's necessary. It's what makes us get up after we fall, try again after we fail, love again after loss. Without hope, we're just biological machines waiting to wind down. With it, we're capable of miracles. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source: music. Lieutenant Chen had requested a guitar from the Zalathi, who had fabricated one with curious precision. During a communal meal, he began playing an old Earth folk song. The humans naturally joined in, their voices harmonizing despite being strangers weeks before. The effect on the Zalathi was immediate and profound. Their crystalline bodies resonated with the music, creating harmonics that turned the simple song into something otherworldly. But more importantly, for the first time, they experienced what humans took for granted: the ability to find joy in the face of uncertainty. This, Velthara said, its mental voice filled with wonder. This is what we lack: the ability to create beauty despite darkness, to sing in defiance of silence. Over the following weeks, the facility became a hub of unprecedented cooperation. Humans taught Zalathi about art, music, literature, all the ways humanity had developed to cope with existential dread. The Zalathi, in turn, shared technology and knowledge that advanced human understanding by centuries. The most significant development was the creation of what Dr. Martinez called cognitive bridges, technological interfaces that allowed Zalathi to experience human emotional resilience without losing their own identity. It wasn't a cure for the silence, but it was a treatment, a way to inoculate their consciousness against despair. Commander Blackstone found herself at the center of a diplomatic revolution. Earth's government, initially demanding the return of their captured personnel, changed their tune when they learned what was happening. The war that had raged for 3 years ended not with conquest or surrender, but with synthesis. The Zalathi shared their energy technology, solving Earth's resource crisis overnight. Humans provided something equally valuable: teachers, artists, musicians, and philosophers who could help the Zalathi rebuild their cultural immune system against the silence. 6 months after her capture, Arya stood in what had been her cell but was now her office, preparing for a transmission to Earth. The Joint Human-Zalathi Council had appointed her as the first interspecies liaison, a position that would have seemed absurd a year ago. Velthara entered, its form now familiar and comforting rather than alien. "The council is ready for your address, Commander." "Both councils." Arya nodded, straightening her new uniform, a blend of human military tradition and Zalathi aesthetics. "Any word from the outer colonies?" "The silence has retreated on 3 more worlds. The human volunteers you sent have established what they call hope centers. The concept still confuses many of our people, but the results are undeniable." They walked together to the transmission chamber, passing through halls where humans and Zalathi worked side by side. Children of both species played in designated areas, the young apparently having no trouble accepting each other's differences. "I've been thinking about your grandmother's words," Velthara said suddenly, "about hope being necessary rather than logical. I believe I understand now. Logic tells us what is. Hope tells us what could be. Your species lives in the space between those 2 states." Arya smiled. "And now so does yours." The transmission began, broadcasting to both Earth and the Zalathi homeworld. Arya looked into the camera, knowing that billions of beings, human and otherwise, were watching. 6 months ago I was captured in battle," she began. "I expected imprisonment, interrogation, possibly death. Instead, I found something no one could have predicted: understanding. The Zalathi didn't capture us to break us. They captured us to learn from us, to understand how humanity persists in the face of impossible odds." She paused, letting the words sink in. "What we discovered together has ended a war and begun something far more important: a true alliance. Not one based on mutual benefit or shared enemies, but on a fundamental recognition that consciousness, in all its forms, is precious and worth preserving." The address continued, outlining the new cooperation agreements, the shared technology initiatives, and the cultural exchange programs. But Arya knew the real message was simpler. Former enemies could become allies when survival depended on understanding rather than dominance. Later, as the facility settled into its night cycle, Arya found herself back in her original quarters. She had been offered grander accommodations but declined. This room, with its walls that still pulsed with bioluminescent life, held too much meaning to abandon. She opened a journal, paper and ink, a gift from Velthara who had learned about human nostalgia, and began to write, Final Testament of Prisoner Zero, though I was never truly a prisoner and this is far from final. Today marks not an ending but a beginning. Humanity has taken its first real steps into a larger universe, not as conquerors or subjects but as teachers and students simultaneously. We brought to the Zalathi our greatest gift, our stubborn refusal to surrender to despair. They gave us something equally valuable, perspective on our own strength. The war is over, but the real work has just begun. Together, we will face the silence and whatever other challenges the universe throws at us. And we will do what humans have always done. We will hope, we will strive, and we will endure. Commander Arya Blackstone, Interspecies Liaison, signing off. She closed the journal and looked out at the alien stars. No longer foreign but familiar. Somewhere among them, human and Zalathi ships now flew together, carrying a message of resilience to a universe that desperately needed it. The prison that never was had become the bridge that always should have been. And in that transformation, both species found their salvation.